Hey guys, this is Redrame here. I am back again with another design challenge video, and also the wrong scene, but hey, you can see I actually play the game. I know, that's a shock to people. Basically, I'm just going to do the same thing I did last time, except with a little bit less detail. Yeah, I'm just going to get started. You know, people have been through the ropes once. I also have a tool for calculating inflation that was sent to me by Rift or Random Flying Taco, if you're not familiar with them, which is this guy right here. I'm going to be using this instead, now that I kind of briefly explained how you would do this manually. People will probably have a better idea to follow along how this works. And yeah, without further ado, I feel really dumb saying this because I'm also streaming and I just explained this already, but we will begin. And are we playing video games today or not? We're unfortunately not playing video games today. If you look at the stream title, I might rotate in a few video games. I might play some after, but this guy right here, I'm just going through the review in case people are interested. So first submission, randomly ordered, is from Pseudo Radius. Launch platform, cost energy, 10 BBGEE, 6 HP, 1 supply. Fragile, start a turn. If this has 10 HP, sacrifice 6 HP and construct 12 Gauss charges. Click, pay GE, gain 2 HP up to a maximum of 10 HP. Briefly reading through the blurb here. I try not to consider what's not on the actual unit too much, but I try to also respect it a bit. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I wish I could play games too, but I did sign up for this, and people probably want to have their units reviewed, so. Anyways, so 6 HP, fragile, for that cost. So if it has, you gain HP by putting in an initial investment here in addition to the cost. And it starts at 6. And if it has 10, sacrifice 6, construct 12 Gauss charges. So this is kind of like a really weird Scorchilla that costs an investment every single turn, and you can opt to not pay the investment if you're not able to. But realistically, you're always going to pay this investment because this clickability is really good, and this is really cheap. You're mostly paying for the initial cost. Balance-wise, this is really hard to put into a calculator, and it's a complicated enough unit that I wouldn't try to. Just off of instinct, it starts at 6, so it's start of turn, so you buy it, and then so it has the Scorchilla timing. It's equivalent to being a build time 3 unit if you're paying this ability every single turn. So off of instinct, this is probably something you could put into the game. It's more efficient than Scorchilla, but you can't spam a bunch of them. You have to buy other units with it. It's a little harder to deny absorb with, and it's also a bigger investment, and it's a legendary unit, so you can make it a little stronger. So I think balance-wise this is a fine unit, but as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a little bit of clunkiness here in the clickability. For one, having it cost energy and then pay energy in the ability, I know that is the theme, but I think this is maybe a little too energy intensive. And it's also kind of, in my opinion, a little lame to have energy in the cost, meaning you have to have engineers on the field and then just keep the engineers around for the click. It doesn't really feel like it's motivating people to have energy. Energy is kind of a weird concept in the game, to be honest. It's not really the designer's fault, I would say. But I do feel like if you're making a unit like this that feels kind of like a Scorchilla and has such a low investment for the clickability, for what it does, you kind of might as well make it a Scorchilla. It feels like it's maybe misusing this a little bit. because the gaining HP and then losing HP thing is so complicated. I think you could even say something like at the start of turn, pay GEEE, or else destroy this unit, and it would be very similar. And I'm not saying that should be done, because or else destroy this unit is not a mechanic that's in the game. Like, I understand what the designer's going for here, so I don't think that's a bad thing, but that being said, this is kind of clunky in my opinion. I'm torn on whether to look at it later or downvote it, but I think I'm going to get better submissions, so I'm going to do that just for my own note-taking. It's not the worst design by any means. Weaver is up next, and we have 7EE, Supply 4. This is one I saw on Discord, so I'm going to quickly go through and delete it on Discord. On my notepad on the other screen. That's done. And hey guys, just gonna stay here for a bit. That's perfectly fine. I expect to have 0 viewers by the time I'm done with this, but it is here if people want it. That's the beauty of streaming, is it doesn't actually matter if people watch your stuff, especially if you're recording anyway. So we have consume an engineer, sacrifice a unit with 1 HP at the start of each player's turn. Okay, so it's a symmetrical effect. Someone pointed out in the Discord that it is SDR breaking because this could be a unit that you... Like, it's actually debatable. It was said in the Discord that this is SDR breaking, but you do have control over whether this is bot. And it's not like, it's not like 3 or more HP. That would obviously be SDR breaking, because it means having more HP could be worth less than having less HP. So this is actually not, as Rift is pointing out in the chat. I was saying that off of instinct because I remembered reading a little bit of stuff around this. So I don't judge units by if they're SDR breaking or not. I was just going to point that out if that was the case, but I'm actually entirely wrong. So, ignore that. What I will say is that this cost for this effect, which it's constructed on your turn, so build time ticks first, and then this effect happens. Like, for example, with Tarsier, it's on build time 1, and then your turn hits, and it goes to 0, and it makes an attack. So because of this, you have to sacrifice it first, so actually this is a theoretically negative effect. The idea is cute that you have to pay a bunch of energy for it, and then you have engineers around. But there is no way anyone would ever buy this unit. And I think it's so off that I probably just have to mark it down for that. It is kind of a cute idea, just like a different way of having a per turn effect. Symmetrical effects aren't really in the game that much, but I think this does a good job of illustrating why symmetrical effects aren't in the game that much, because it's so hard to design units that actually are fairly costed and would actually be bought. Like, when there's a symmetrical set, it becomes kind of hard to use symmetrical units, and they have to be pretty cheap. And usually your opponent has to do something different from what you do. So, because of that, we're downvoting this one. Next up, we have Pooch here, with Shield Drone. 8 EE GGG, 6 HP. I imagine it's a shield, so, okay, it is a blocker. Click, gain 3. Okay, prompt, fragile. Oh, it's prompt 2. Interesting. I wasn't sure whether this is going to be prompt or not, and then it's click, gain 3. So, it's 3 drones plus 3 green. Minus 1 gold. So it costs a little more than 3 drones, but in exchange, you can spam this and it's pretty strong. Which, this is kind of an interesting one. We'll read the blurb here. I forgot to read the blurb right away, having trouble with this design. I want to be relevant as pure soak if the energy is free. Limit how much the cost can increase. Relevant to absorb. Over a wall. That makes sense as well. I was pretty clear from the design that you wanted this to be the case. but then not too OP in its functions, the early game absorber. And because this is an absorber, that's kind of where it's hard to draw the line, because not all absorbers are created equal. So I usually do give leeway to these designs, and as an advanced absorber, which is clearly what the unit's going for, it's within the ballpark of what you could put in the game. It's not more broken than Centurion, it's not less broken than Wall. So this blurb is pretty accurate. This is about how I expected you going through the process of making this unit. I'm not very surprised reading it. I'll say it's probably not like the most crazy, wild, imaginative, unit out there, but there's nothing saying it has to be. This is definitely a unit that's fine for the game. It's well designed. You could put it in. So we'll put that one in the running. Wade v1.1. This was updated. I apologize to SSP who replied on Reddit that I accidentally put the wrong version of his unit in for the submission because I didn't look at replies. But yeah, for contest mode, you have to click show replies on every single thread, which I could do, but the rules do say top level submission, so I think it's better to just stick with that, and it's also less work for me. So 10 BEE, 2 health, 2 stamina. Target 2 target attack. Is target attack like you choose where it goes? I have fun trying to read these because it's a different formatting from what most other people use, but I do try to give these units a fair chance. Pay 2 target attack. Destroy enemy 3 HP or less. Gate exhaust 2. Okay, so it's kind of like a mini Apollo that can become an Apollo, but if you use it to kill a 3 HP unit, it gets exhausted. Leftover destroy power gives... I don't know what leftover means. Destroyed rebuild once. Okay, so this unit does... it's got stamina 2 as well, so you could click... So you can only do this thing twice. There is... there is so much going on here. Okay, So I do get the theme of this unit. I am going to say it's got 2 health. There are a couple of things. Oh, okay. It has a dictionary at the bottom. Sweet. Supply 1 can take out a red. Can take out a red by shooting the animus for the opponent. I guess that is true. So it's a signable attack. I got that right. Wade, armor man. Okay, turn miniguns. Click. Oh, this is for animations. Okay. So you have a full glossary here. So my initial impression was right that this is 2 targeted attack. I will say for 10 BEE, energy is not worth that much. This unit is ridiculously good. Like Apollo costs 13, requires triple forge, and it has build time too. And you can just do this every single turn. Stamina doesn't tick for start of turn abilities. And in addition, you have Gravy here that your opponent also gets bullied out of 3 health units that are worth sniping with Apollo. So like if your opponent happens to be going Amparilla, you still screw them over. Obviously, I would say this clickability for a unit of this style, it's a fair downside. But the turn ability is way too strong for this cost. And additionally, the destroyed rebuild once. Leftover destroy power gives exhaust 1 to 1 HP. This further... Okay, so this is the asterisk ability, so... You can also give exhaust 1 to 1 HP. So it also exhausts the drones? Like, you can also target the row. You can target with the row with drones, and then I can say off the bat, this is way too much going on for even just the first line of this ability already being too strong. So it's an easy downvote for me. I did actually figure out what it does. I'm proud of myself for that. These are honestly really fun puzzles for me. I kind of enjoy trying to figure out what these units do. So, next we have Rift here, who submitted the thing. We might use the thing. Although I imagine he probably used the thing. So Drone Droid, 1 HP, build time 2 blocker. As an additional cost, consume an engineer, start a turn, gain EE, click and pay E, gain 1. That is interesting, because it's a fairly small unit that still does quite a bit, and is kind of fancy and consumes an engineer. Destroyed, I already have some discussion in chat on this one. Destroyed, rebuild once, violates Shaliv's rule, right? You could argue it technically, not, because it's not a blocker, I don't think it does. If it's a blocker, it probably is, but I think you could have this line of text on a unit that's not a blocker and it wouldn't violate Shaliv's rule. But that being said, it is kind of a waste of a line. Like, this is an ability that it just doesn't need, because if you're getting breached and your opponent's killing Wade, you're not gonna win the game because this line is on it. Like, 99% of the time. Like, there's kind of just no point for it to rebuild when destroyed, because in a typical game, the objective is to not get breached, and then you're never using this. So I would put that on a unit that actually is more likely to get destroyed. Anyways, moving on. We have gain EE, quick pay, gain 1. So, costs 1 gold and an engineer for a build time 2. The simplest way you could use this, and probably you use the click ability, although it is a blocker. But you make the simplest, to simplify this unit down, you're paying 1 and an engineer for a build time 2 drone that also makes an energy. So, that seems, it definitely is fair. That might actually possibly be underpowered. I'm trying to I guess I could use the calculator on this one. This is not the craziest unit ever. We'll break out the calculator mostly for fun, because I want to use the calculator. So, we have a custom unit here. I guess I have view only. Can't just make my own tab on this. Okay, well, I guess maybe Rift was showing this just as an example, like saying he wanted me to use a calculator. I was just going to use his because it's make my own copy. Okay. Make a copy. Seems good. I don't use drive a ton. That is my bad. Okay, that's actually, yeah, I'm pretty dumb. I definitely should have done that. Although it's still taking a while. Actual questions, too late to submit at this point. I have started the review and it is 10, so I would say yes, it's too late. Sorry, bud. Although, if you want to submit your unit to me, like directly through a PM on Discord, I will get it, because I'm doing Discord second. So I guess for you specifically, go ahead. But in general, this is marking the end of submission time. So we'll just use Tarsier. Doesn't really matter which page we use here. goes up to 40 turns. I actually forget how to put this in really quickly. Maybe like this, and then 1. I suck at using spreadsheets. But I mean, we don't actually have to go to 40 turns. We can just delete, or we can't delete. Why can't we delete? Anyway, I could easily calculate the launch pad using this. Which launch pad? Was Launchpad one that we... Oh, the launch platform? Yes, you could. It's still on view only. No, it's not on view only. Oh, it did delete. It just took forever to actually... Huh. Strange. So... Okay, and we got another submission, so I'm gonna add that to the list real quick. Okay. Got it. On the notepad here. So, anyways, this guy, starting on turn 2, makes a golden energy. Or that doesn't work. I am too lazy to figure out how to actually do that. Thought you could just quickly... But we'll go to turn 10 for the lulz. Or turn 10's maybe a little bit. I'm not sure if I agree with this energy value. Energy value fluctuates a ton depending on the game. But I can tell a whole bunch of people are going to yell at me for not knowing how to do this. Oh, man. And it costs 1E, which we will... I think 1E is technically not 2, because you pay 2 the turn... Well, no, it is. Yeah, okay. So, we'll just say -3 gold. Make it really simple. So... The idea seems to be you really want to buy it. This is kind of interesting. Obviously, it's probably more to the red than it should be because I am lazy and didn't put in enough numbers. But the idea here is you buy it at low inflation, which is kind of what I got when I looked out of the design. Might simply be I'm spending way more time than I need to. Can customize energy value. I know you can customize energy value right here, but it's not really something worth customizing. I think this is a fair estimate, but it's just energy is a particularly dodgy resource to estimate, is what I'm going to say. This is a little interesting reading the chat for this one, when the chat's not on the screen. So it'll probably make for a very funny and hard to follow video, but I'm okay with that. I'm just here to do this real quickly. I'm probably wasting my time with this if I'm being honest. Oh, was I using the other copy by accident? Oh god. I had both tabs open. And, yeah, okay. Never mind. Anyways, looking at the unit, it seems fairly balanced from the spreadsheet. That's at least what the spreadsheet would suggest. If you actually do need energy, if there's a unit like Electrovore or something like that, energy value goes up by quite a bit, and this becomes very efficient. And it seems like a fair unit. I I guess the question is, you're consuming an engineer, and then you're making EE, and most of the time you're clicking with it. Like, there's pretty much no scenario in which case you would actually not click, aside from to avoid clicking a drone, because holding this is better than holding a drone, theoretically, because at that point the game energy is going to be pretty much worthless, but you still get the 2 energy. Like, this unit kind of just feels a little bit silly to me in that I can't really think of the scenario that this unit's designed for. Like, it's clearly an early game drone, as drones are early game units, but it feels like this unit could be start of turn, gain 1E, and I'm not really sure what the difference in the unit would be. It's a little less flavorful because it's a drone. Judgment is based on RNG, whether I make a mistake in the calculation or not. I usually don't go by calculations, though. I calculate for the sake of, informing people and also attempting to be fair. And for simple units, like this one, if the calculation showed it was garbage, then maybe I would consider that. But never, this unit ripped off from SSP. Oh my god. Chat, please. Maybe it's actually true. I probably shouldn't say that, but anyways. I usually don't actually factor in the balance that much. Usually by the end, in particular, like, balance is good for helping weed out submissions, but it doesn't really tell you the actual core elements of whether a submission would do well in the game or not. So this is a fair unit. I would say the design on this one's a little wonky, but I am going to approve it because it's thematic. It works. It does feel like the part of the unit that actually fits the submission is kind of unnecessary, which is why I'm on the fence about it. Like, it doesn't really feel like a unit where, like, oh, it does something cool when you pay energy. Like, it's just a drone that makes a gold when you pay energy, and it makes an energy. It's like, I'm probably not picking this one, but I am going to leave it. Send them slaying Paco. Oh, man. That's a pretty good conspiracy theory. Ugh. Anyways, I do have to actually, like, finish this at some point, so I'm going to move on to War Master 93's design. Has been developed and allowed to wield the plasma lance. Ooh, we have lore for this one. I love lore. I don't actually love lore. And now I know everyone's going to put lore on their submissions just to be like, oh, he loves lore. I'm actually mostly ignoring the lore. I'm just reading it for fun. Design choices. Costs 3 tech. Reduce rushability. Seems powerful versus red. To keep pressure on the engineers. Okay, so that's the reasoning behind it. Let's read the actual unit. 10 GBB. Start turn, gain 2. Quick pay, 3 energy, gain 2. Deal 1 to a target enemy unit. Okay, so I see the logic behind where this design went because I read the blurb down here. That being said, this unit's really good. This unit is definitely not balanced. I like the lore a lot, but if you consider that this unit is basically a Drake that costs a green instead of a gold, which obviously, if Drake costed 10 GBB and didn't have the click ability, no one would be complaining about that. It would just be a slightly cheaper double splitter. And that would be a unit that could go in the game. It wouldn't be ridiculously weak, it wouldn't be good, but it would occasionally get bought when the tech cost was convenient. But this extra ability here, pay EEEXX. Okay, I was, maybe this is RNG after all. I was like, wow, this is really busted, but I assumed it was part of the okay. It is a good thing to have chat after all. Chat is 500 IQ. Chat sees all. In that case, this is a unit that you could put into the game. I was about to rant about how this unit was ridiculous, but I will say this is kind of a hefty cost for switching from 2 attack to... It's not that hefty, like 3 energy is reasonable. This is actually a pretty fair design, and if your opponent has Tarsiers, you get some value out of this, I would say. Paying 3 energy to trade 2 attack for killing a Tarsier. You get some value out of it, and it makes for interesting decisions whether to keep it powered. Okay. Chat definitely changed my opinion on this one. I apologize for almost horribly misreading this unit. This one's good. I like this one. I see nothing wrong with it. It's functional. It's a simple attacker, and it has a nice click ability where you can trade the attack. And the energy feels fitting. Like, it's not a free ability, but it's something where it's kind of just Fission Turret-like. You can plan to use it ahead of time. And it's low cost, and potentially really useful utility, but not, like, something you'd automatically want to do. So far, this one's easily the front runner, I'm going to say right now. Zapper Sapper. We have 2 and an E for 4 supply, 1 HP. Click Zapper Sapper, make 2 opposing non-blocking, non-exhausted drones get exhaust 2. Shuts down 2 opposing drones for 1 turn. Works as a way to knock opponent off of fast rush timing. Can be squeezed into sharp openings to deny an important unit at critical moment later in the game. Okay, so that is what this unit's going for. I will say this unit seems underpowered, but it is kind of a cute idea, and it's for being like a weird wonky utility unit that kind of has a symmetrical effect. In this case, both players get -2 gold. I will say this one's actually, like, kind of interesting. Like, there are actual times where you would use this unit. Like, if your opponent has 20 gold and 3 blue, which is not a terribly uncommon situation, you would buy Zapper Sapper, and your opponent would not buy Odin, and they would instead be very sad. And it's 4 supply, so you can't spam it forever. You can't... I guess there is a risk with this one. This symmetrical effect in particular can actually be pretty powerful, because you can do things along the lines of buy more drones than your opponent and then Zapper Sap them to oblivion, so they can't buy their attack once they've invested in a tech building. Like, if you had a large supply of this unit, it would be kind of like Deadeye, but because it's 4 supply, I actually like this design, and I think it would make trying to rush units more interesting. I think this is a fair one. I'm going to give it a thumbs up. It's probably base +7 in a lot of sets, which is the main argument against that unit, but it is actually cool. I like what it does. It changes up how the game is played in quite a few situations. Antima Masher. So 9 RR, so 9 and 2 of each tech, 1 supply. Additional cost, 4 engineer supply. It costs engineer supply. Okay. When a unit costs supply, I'm already iffy, because supply is marginal in most cases, and that probably means your unit does something really overpowered if you're actually worried about engineer supply. Like, I don't think you should have to have an advanced unit that worries about there being 22 engineers in the game instead of 18, but we'll see. Okay, it sacrifices all of your engineers. It's gonna do something broken, isn't it? Um, Lifespan 4, click, pay 2 energy, and sacrifice all of your engineers. So first off, if you're sacrificing all your engineers, paying 2 energy is not going to do anything. Obviously, it's engineer flavored, which is kind of like tangential to the challenge. So I'm probably going to let it pass. But technically, the challenge says pay energy or cost energy, not engineers. So it does feel like this unit's kind of trying to stretch the challenge to fit a template rather than adhering to the challenge. But as I said, it's engineer flavored, and that's kind of a gray area that wasn't cleared up by the person who submitted the challenge. Can Winter not consume exhausted drones relating to the last submission? No, it cannot. Technically speaking, because they do nothing. Like, I'm pretty sure that's right. Because you can't venge an exhausted drone. That's the only example that's actually in the game, right? Like, if you have a defense grid, you can't build a venge out of your exhausted drone. So yeah, it would shut down Windsor, which is another cool application of this unit. So anyways, on to the unit we are actually reviewing. Construct an antimacomet with build time equal to its lifespan. Equal, I assume, meaning this unit's lifespan? That's the only lifespan actually in the equation here. So, smashes all your engineers into a ball and sends it into space for a massive comeback. With build time? So you buy a bunch of engineers, you use this unit to sacrifice them, and then it multiplies the damage. You get 1 Antima for each engineer, so it multiplies the damage of the remaining engineers. Lore NG ball. Yeah, technically lore. This unit just seems like a mess to me. It's probably broken. You can click it 4 times to sync up a quad Antima. Wait, why do you sacrifice all of your engineers? This unit makes no sense. This is sacrifice all your engineers when you click it, but what it does doesn't depend on how many engineers you sacrifice. That's why I was so confused by this design and had a hard time figuring it out. I do think, as a general rule, if you have an ability, and these abilities aren't even really in the game, by the way, but I think it's something that could be in the game and feel like it fits. It's something that sacrifices every copy of a unit that you own. In this case, all of your engineers. You should, if that's what your unit does, you should have a benefit that's proportional to it, or at least it doesn't have to be linearly related, but it should at least do more if you sacrifice more. Otherwise, the optimal strategy with this unit, you buy Antima Masher, you buy 1 engineer, next turn you buy 1 engineer, next turn you buy 1 engineer, next turn you buy 1 engineer. And then, so you pay, like, 4 engineers because you're clicking this 4 times, and you lose 4 engineers supply. That's a 52 damage Antimacomet. Or 56, I'm bad at math. With the remaining 14 engineers. I think that's enough said. Like, it costs more than Antimacomet. It costs like 19. If you add in the cost of engineers, some of which are delayed, you could say this unit costs at most 17 RR, BB, GG. And I guess you have to buy engineers, which are a little inefficient. It's a weird design, and it's probably broken. So I'm gonna say nay. Okay, click pay EE. So you have to pay at least 2 engineers. So that's why the pay EE cost is there. So I do get that now. Now this design, now it makes a little more sense, but like you still get 10, and you... The other thing about this unit is it's like only really good in high econ because of the tech cost. But if you can actually buy the 10 engineers, you just get a 40 damage ridiculous. Like this unit, the more I read it, is probably not overpowered. I think it's just a mess of a design because it does, like, it has... Like, the fact that you need this requirement for your ability, like, to guarantee you're sacrificing all of your engineers, I think that's kind of a mess. I think there's too much going on here. Anyways, I'm gonna move on for the sake of it. Resource reallocation. GG, 1 supply, spell. Build time 2. Effect, all of your drones gain frontline, fragile, and heal 1 health up to 2 maximum health. So it's a build time 2 spell, so basically you're just making your drones 2 HP. Since its effect is only once, it would only affect the drones you currently have, making them frontline 2 health. Okay, so if you bought more drones, then... Realistically, a turn after it happens, you should be losing half your drones or more to the frontline effect. I'm going to say off the bat that might not be true. Because once these drones have 2 health, and they immediately heal the health when they come in, so you're making your drones 2 health, right? Or is it... I can't tell if the heal 1 is trying to make it so that when this unit comes in, they get the front line and the fragile before they have 2 max health. But I think by Prismata mechanics, they would get the 2 max health right away. Which means that you would just... Killing drones is worse value than, like, killing defense, in theory. Although, you also don't really have to defend if you... Like, this unit basically enables breach-proof just for 2 green, because 2 health drones are breach-proof drones. Like, that is good enough that you know costing defense will cost you more than the drones that they're protecting. You lose the ability to absorb. So theoretically, do they retain blocker? They should retain blocker. But you should still have to click. Like, it sounds like those things don't change. So I don't really like this unit because it for one, it costs nothing. It costs 2 green, which is not nothing, but it doesn't cost any gold, which for a unit that has this fancy of an effect, it should cost gold. Like, simple units, I think, are, reasonable to have not costing gold. But I don't like this complex of a unit not having a gold cost to it, because it's kind of just something you could buy as a filler. The effect is almost always good, I would say. That might not be true. Like, early on in the game, giving your drones frontline is more of a negative than giving them 2 health is a positive. But late in the game, if you just have 2 green floating, you'll just buy this. And if your attackers are breach-proof, suddenly you're breach-proof, and you had to do no planning whatsoever, whereas with all of the drones currently in the game, there's actually an element of skill in setting up the breach-proof build. Playing it's pretty easy, but I feel like a unit like this would just make breach-proof really boring. And this might also be cheaper than converting your drones to breach-proof drones, which is probably not a good thing. I think the more efficient ones, like Thorium Dynamo, still would outclass this because you would buy them even in defending games. But once you get to, like, Trinity Drone, if you know it's a breach-proof game, you might just buy this instead, and I think that's kind of lame. Like, if you have a unit like this that just automatically breach-proofs your drones, you probably want it to be less good than Trinity Drone, since Trinity Drone's like the traditional breach-proof enabler. It's possible this cost is enough to do that. I think it's sort of borderline on that regard, but I do think the design of just make all of your drones breach-proof and also give them frontline. I feel like it leaves a little bit to be desired. So I'm going to downvote this one and move on, since I'm not really sure what else to say about it. It's not, like, flawed. Like, there's nothing here that I think you would obviously change to fix the design. I think it's kind of just a design that I'm not in love with. So, Blue Eyes White Dragon, 30 RRR. I like the flavor here. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Once when I was a kid. 1 supply, 10 HP. Fragile frontline blocker. That is a lot of gold, by the way. That is more gold than any other unit in the game. By 10. But that's not to say it wouldn't go in the game. We'll find out if it goes in the game. Frontline blocker. So 10 HP, 30 RR. First off, when you can kill this unit, you probably would. Okay, but it's a blocker, so that's probably a good thing. This is like massive Hannibal. I can tell already without reading the rest of the unit. Oh god, when bot, construct 2 additional Blue Eyes White Dragons. Start of turn, gain 4 attack. Construct an auric impulse for your opponent. If you have more drones than your opponent, construct an additional auric impulse for your drone. Click and pay 2, gain attack. If this unit has 5 health or less. Oh, it's fragile too. It doesn't absorb. Okay. Gain 2 attack instead. What a unit. This unit doesn't even consume energy. You know what? You're right. It doesn't consume energy. I kind of just assumed, with all of these fancy effects, it had energy somewhere in it. Huh. Interesting. Screw the rules, I have money. I will evaluate this unit just because it's funny. This is such a hard unit to evaluate that maybe I shouldn't. Because the thing is, this unit's really expensive, but it's also really efficient, but it's also fragile frontline blocker. And because of that, this unit's really hard to evaluate, and you'd have to test it a bunch, because it's ridiculously efficient if you go by the calculator or something like that. But anyways, it doesn't consume energy, so let's ignore that one, because we're just wasting time. That is, like, literally the only requirement. Fun fact, he originally had Trinity Strike cost only energy, but you figured it'd make it way easy to set up. I think that's actually fair. I think if it only costed energy, it would be really easy to set up. And probably too good. I just felt like by the time you added the difference between E and GBRE is massive. Like, that's at that point, at the point in the game where you'd be using this unit, that's almost like an infinite % increase on what you're paying for the unit. So you're basically saying you originally had it cost basically nothing, and instead it costed, like, you know, something. So it's a little tricky. Anyways, reading the actual unit now. Biology lab, 3, 10 supply. Oh, it's a nice, simple unit. I won't have to spend 3 years on this one. Click pay EE to gain RR. So, it's a cheaper Animus that uses energy. If you buy 3 engineers and then keep it around, you're paying, and keep them around, you're paying 9 to get prompt engineers and an Animus. And that's totally fair. And if you use the 2 starting engineers, you can get a fast rush, but you have to keep them alive. This unit seems totally fair. And it changes up how the game is played. I like it. It's maybe a little better than Animus, I would say, especially if you're able to make use of the starting engineers. But it is an advanced unit, so I see nothing wrong with that. P.S. You quite enjoyed the video. Thanks for... Oh, crap, we have edits. I should not move on that quickly. Changed from 2 gold to 5 gold. Change the numbers. Okay, so we do have the final version here. I'm just making sure. I like the final version. Not sure what's most interesting, at least degenerate. That is the risk to this type of unit, is these type of units usually find sets where they're degenerate. And this one definitely will, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think this one could go into the game. You do have to at least buy an engineer, so at minimum, you're cheating this out for 5. Or you're playing like a high econ Lucina game, in which case that's the type of game this unit's designed for. So I don't think this is I don't think this is like... Designing alternate animuses is really scary and really hard. Because they're so easy to break, or so easy to make useless because you were too worried about not breaking them. But of the ones I've seen, this is definitely one of the better ones. This is a unit that you could probably put in the game and get away with. Next we have Kylie here. Coveter. This is a unit I saw on Discord, so I'm going to quickly delete that. 6, 1 supply, 4 health, additional cost 5 drones. Purchase effect, construct 6 engineers, lifespan 4. On your turn, you may spend energy as gold. Attempts to not spend energy as gold unless you are out of gold. And go to lock in your turn, any left over. G is converted into gold. Click sacrifice a drone, construct an auric impulse. So it has a built-in ebb turbine effect, except it's delayed. It's less good than the ebb turbine effect because you construct the auric impulse instead of getting it immediately. Well, no, that's not true. You're investing the gold into the auric impulse and then it pays 4. So it's about the same. Maybe a little less good, I would say, because it's like you're getting the 3 and you're forced to put it into an auric impulse. At high inflations, it's less good. Otherwise, it's pretty close to the same. It's also a unit that you're like pretty much always willing, or it's also an ability you're pretty much willing to use, though, unless you're worried about drone supply. You may spend energies. So this unit has quite a few things going on. You may spend energy as gold. You're paying 6 and 5 drones for 6 engineers. And then the ability to spend energy is gold. So 6 plus 5 drones is 21. At the point in the game you would be buying this unit, that's pretty much accurate. And you're immediately getting 6 engineers, which are now treated as 6 drones. So you're already getting 12 of that back. And then you're paying 9 for the ability to buy 2 gold drones. How good is that? Oh, it's lifespan 4. I'm forgetting that too. This one's one of the more complicated ones so far. I don't think that's at all overpowered. And the second click ability I basically call icing. I don't think you really have to consider that in the valuation. I think this is a unit that, like, you get 2 engineers for free, maybe. And then the engineers, once you lose your drones. This is actually a pretty tough unit to time, but I think it's a unit that might be good at some point. It's actually kind of interesting. My one complaint is the ability to spend energy as gold. when it just hands you 6 engineers is kind of lame. I think you could instead just make this unit cheaper and make it not construct 6 engineers. And then it would possibly be more interesting. Although the fact that it costs drones is probably good, and there's not much cost to it besides the drones. So this does, and the 6 and the 6 is relatively good design, I'd say. So I don't really think that's a problem here. I will upvote it. I think it's maybe a little bit of a weird unit. It's one of the units that I think might have too much going on. Like, for example, the second click ability and this whole deal in parentheses. I get this is just to simplify the game so that people have to do, like, less clicking and worry about how this would actually be implemented in the game. But I'm not worried about that so much. I'm willing to accept that there's, some way to implement this in the game. I'm mostly evaluating based on how interesting or uninteresting of sets would this create in the game. Would it actually see play, those types of things. So I feel like it's got a little bit much going on, but we'll let it through. Because it is kind of an interesting concept, even though I don't know if I love the idea of spending energy as gold. That might just be me. Gauss Giant. 8GGG. I like the name, first of all. That's a pretty cute name. 5 HP. Fragile Blocker. Quick Pay EE. Gain XX. Restore 1 HP up to a maximum of 12 HP. Gauss Giant, like, flavor-wise, I think of more than 5 health. I'd think of it being, like, massive, because it's a freaking planet. But, maybe it's not. Maybe the name is just cute, and it's like an actual giant. I'm obviously not nitpicking that. Like, I'm just saying that for the lulz, but, like, creating the unit's much more important. So I would be stupid to actually say, oh, it's named Gauss Giant and it has 5 HP. Nah, I'm not doing that. But it is kind of funny to me that the name is so well thought out and then it's 5 health. That's obviously just personal, but Fragile Blocker, pay 2 energy, gain 2 health, restore 1 HP up to a maximum of 12. It's like buying 2 Electivores that can regen health, or as one player puts it, like a cheap Colossus that can regen health. Huh. I will admit that is kind of interesting. 8GGG, how good is that? If we break that down into gold, it's 12. My one main worry about this unit, the specific design of it is definitely slightly on the overpowered side. Like, I get that you can use it as an absorber, and theoretically that makes it okay. But when you're getting free health, like, this unit, if it was just, like, if it was a fragile Mahar Rectifier that you could use just once, it'd already be on about the power level of Mahar Rectifier. And you're just getting this... Oh, but you do have to pay 2 energy, right? It's the challenge. Which is definitely not enough to make up for the free health, but even still, I would say this unit's slightly strong, but it is a cool idea, and it definitely works. And it's definitely one that you could rebalance. You could, like, slap on another energy, or maybe it's fine as is. Like, after reading it a little more carefully, this is definitely, like, not the most ridiculous unit to put in the game because you're using it as an absorber. Like, if it's 8 GGG, and then you have to pay the 2 energy to use it as 2 attack per turn, like, this cost actually does, push it to where it's not, like, an amazing main attacker, which is my first concern when I saw the unit. So this is well thought out. I like this one. It takes a little while for me to actually, sink in the units. This is my first time looking at them. I know I sometimes reference, like, oh, I've seen this one on Discord, but by that I mean literally I've seen it, as in I copy-pasted it onto a notepad. I don't mean I like looked through and evaluated it. Sometimes I accidentally read some context around the unit from people commenting on it, but that's just because I can't help myself. It's not something I try to do. So I apologize for that. If I like have an initial gut reaction about a unit that's wrong. But yeah, that one's good. So far I've been happy with the submissions. I haven't seen a submission that's been like, I haven't seen many submissions that have just been like completely outlandish. And there have been quite a few, and I've been like, oh, that would actually be really cool to have in the game. So this will be a tough one. Next we have Helichaz, Hurricane, 12 GGB, 4 supply, 8 health blocker. Lifespan 1, dies after 1 turn. Frontline can be attacked directly. Start a turn, gave 5 attack. Click, pay 3 energy. Increase the lifespan of this unit by 1 turn. And it's a blocker. So it's a frontline lifespan blocker that deals 5 attack per turn. And you can click pay energy, so you can use it as not a blocker. Should you prefer polywall qualities, so plus 5 Gauss charges, or a cheap 5 damage attacker? That's basically what I'm getting out of this unit. The design is definitely interesting, and it's complicated enough, and the mechanics kind of work together pretty well. Like, all of these abilities actually feel necessary, and it feels kind of flavorful. Like, it's a hurricane. It fades quickly, but you can put energy into it, and it keeps going. It's a reasonable unit. I'm trying to figure out how balanced it is. Like, you're paying a lot, and it's hard to actually make use of the soak and because it's even frontline, like it's a polywall, as the post pointed out. So you always have the ability to switch it off. 12 GGB pay. How good is that if you're just using it as 5 attack a turn? I think that's the only thing that could possibly be broken about this unit. But the cost, the resources add up to like 18. That's not quite to the point where you can make the excuse that it's a large investment, and it has to be more efficient because of that. I agree if you're like using the polywall portion of it, or if your opponent has 8 damage, and can use the polywall portion of it, then this unit is probably fair. But I think the current Hurricane meta, with how this unit's currently set up, would be buy a Hurricane, deal 5 with it until your opponent can kill it, and then your opponent kills it for you. Possibly once your opponent's able to kill it, you hold it just so that you get the defense tempo for that turn. But I think this ability, start a turn, gain 5 attack for this cost, is just too strong. And also forcing your opponent to rush is kind of something that's probably not super encouraged. It can make for interesting games sometimes, but like there's nothing wrong with the design of this unit. I like this unit's design. I probably like it enough to give it an upvote. Just like, it is a cool unit, and I think it's an interesting design. I would probably try to make this 4 attack and 9 health. That way it's the same unit if you're using it as a polywall-like unit, but it's less scary as like a permanent attacker. It's kind of like the same type of nerf that was given to Thunderhead, I think is what this unit needs. Speaking of Thunderhead cost more than this, and originally 5 attack was still ridiculous. Obviously, had a powerful secondary ability to absorb, but, food for thought. So I would change this to 4 and 9, but the fact that I can come up with a change that easily that I think makes sense shows that it's a pretty good design. This unit makes sense. I like it. So next up, we have Armadiode, I think is how that's pronounced. It feels like that's supposed to be a cute, armadillo, but it's also a diode. Okay, minor points for that. I feel like it's a little bit too cheesy of a name to really give it, points for flavor, cute name. But I appreciate the attempt. 5R, 10 supply. Yeah, it's a red unit. That is what the attempt here was. Okay, I got the joke. Feels good, man. Armadillo. Yeah, pretty much. 3 HP. Blocker, fragile, propped. Click pay E, heal back up to 3 HP. Okay, so my first concern about this unit is it's a red wall. That's kind of my only concern about it. Oh, okay. If you're using it as an absorber, you have to pay an energy to heal it back up to 3 HP. And that's kind of an interesting idea, right? The idea is it's a worse wall, but you can use it enables red to have a wall as long as you're willing to pay energy for it. But there are 2 problems here. Oh, there are 3 actually. Drab pointed out in the chat that red is fragile, which doesn't fit the red design. But I am sort of willing to break the color pie a little bit. I'm not too worried about it's a red unit and it's fragile. If it's outlandish, which red fragile, to be fair, doesn't make sense. That is probably one of the more that is probably one of the stranger designs. What you could do instead, it's a little more wordy, and I don't really like it either because of it, is you could say if this unit doesn't die, give it exhaust 1. You could, and then pay energy to remove the exhaust. No, that doesn't work with exhaust. I don't know how you would fix this unit to fit in the interface, and also have it not break the color pie of it being fragile. But I am mostly ignoring that. What I don't like about the unit is, 1, if you just pay 5R and use it as soak, that's better than all of the red soak in the game. In fact, it's ridiculous soak. It's Aegis quality soak. And giving that to the opponent is pretty scary. The chat is suggesting 4GR for this unit, which I think is a fair suggestion. It makes it a little less efficient. It gives it an excuse to be efficient because it's got green in it. And it also makes the fragile make sense. If this unit was 4GR, I'd like it significantly more. That being said, it is still kind of a weird, clunky unit. And the current cost on it is, a bit scary. And I think it's a simple enough unit. The fact that you could just use it as a wall, and it's a better wall, I think is something that should probably be thought out beforehand for a unit that's red. So I'm not going to let this one through. But the other thing is this cost. I like the idea of having it be a downside if you want to use it as an absorber. But then enabling red to have absorb. I think this is the most clever part of the unit. But I also think that's just not enough of a cost to deter people from using red absorb. This unit would get totally abused by every single red brush. And it would not be fun. So next we have Helichaz here. Originally made this unit as a joke because he thought the unit cost was funny, but now you're quite fond of the design. Okay. I will admit that is pretty funny. Costs egg. The unfortunate thing about this unit is in game, it'll just be GGE. because it'll be reordered, and no one will get the joke. I mean, people will get the joke, but a lot of people won't get the joke. And I think the cuteness of the unit is probably a lot of the value here. But I guess I should read the rest of the unit before saying that. That's kind of just an instinct that you get after reading a lot of designs for a while. 1 HP prompt blocker. Click pay G, construct a prompt barrier. Okay, so you can pay 2 green and energy for a 1 health blocker. That's the first way you could use this unit. And that's not broken at all. In fact, that's bad. So, that's fair enough. And the way you're meant to use the unit from the design is but it is a way to, like, trinket green if you have, like, a ton of green and no way to use it. So I like that. I should point out the fact that it has that flexibility, I think adds to the design. I like that it's, cheap defense, but also, or it's inefficient defense, but it also can sink green. There's no unit like that in the game. You could argue Barrier is said unit, but Barrier costs 1 gold. And this is more inefficient than Barrier, but it doesn't cost gold, so it fills a hole there, even though it's something you would actively try to avoid doing. Anyways, the actual unit, pay G, construct a prompt barrier. Obviously, that clickability is good, but it means you're not using the 1 health of the sentient egg. So, you are basically just, you're paying EGG and then green per turn to get a barrier per turn. How good is that? You could say at drone level inflation that a green per turn is worth 4, and you could say that EGG is probably worth like maybe 1.5, a little more than that. No, not 1.5. I added 1 green. Sorry, that's definitely wrong. It's about 3 gold. And it's 10 supply. The big concern is that you could totally drag out games with this unit. I think that's the reason this unit wouldn't be put into the game, is because you can have 10 of these and then suddenly you negate 10 damage per turn. And if you're playing base set only, this unit is probably better than Gauss Cannon. Like, it's a unit that you could feasibly buy, which is good. You want it to be feasibly buyable. But because of that, I think making this unit 10 supply is really risky. I think if you wanted a game like this or a unit like this to be in the game, you would make it 4 supply or even 1 supply. For a unit this small, you'd make it 4 supply probably. It's a cool design, and it's pretty fairly balanced. Like, it's only just better than base set, and it got weird flexibility, and it's on a 1-turn delay. Well, it's on a 1-turn delay, sure, but you're paying, if you bought Sentient Egg and you bought a Conduit, you would be getting a green and then paying a green. So, costing it at 4 is correct, for 1 green per turn. And, oh, you mean the barrier's on a 1-turn delay? Yeah, sure, but I'm valuing it at 1 defense per turn. The barrier itself is prompt, which, for GG to block 1 attacker is ridiculous per turn. It's kind of ridiculous to you. Our advanced attackers, like, I agree it is borderline. A unit that's, like, absorb but not absorb should not be that good. And that's basically the category I would put the unit into. Whoa, that's a bad sentence. I have definitely had worse sentences on this stream when I'm just, like, kind of running through my head. Don't worry about it. Anyways. I am gonna, like, the design is cute, but I do agree, like, the problem with these types of designs, which I am gonna leave it upvoted just because my instinct was to upvote it. It's definitely not to pick it, but, like, I would say it's a tier above some of the other ones that we've seen for sure. The problem with this type of design is you either make it so that it's buyable against, like, most units, in which case, like, your opponent, like, you're pretty much just always going to buy it unless there's a ridiculous attacker in the set. In the set. Or you make it not drag out games automatically when you buy it. In which case, it's very hard to make it, like, even buyable against base set attackers, because the gap, as I pointed out in the video from last week, the gap between base set attackers and advanced set attackers in efficiency is not very large. So it's really hard to find a unit like this that takes advantage of the effect that attack efficiency varies slightly from set to set. And this unit's efficient enough that it would drag out a lot of games. And, like, the different ways of using it are, like, it's pretty obvious you're using it for the clickability, not to pay GG for a 1 health blocker, even though that's a cool application of it that you would use sometimes. So, because of that, I don't think this is the best design, but it could work. I don't think it's ridiculously overpowered, because it also costs an energy per turn, which is not nothing. It's close to nothing, which has made judging a lot of these pretty fun. But, 4 GG per, like, that is definitely on the efficient side, but if you have, like, some big attackers that do, like, there are units that would avoid this, like Blood Rager, Valkyrian, Amperilla is just enough raw efficiency that I think you could probably get away with this being in the game. I do agree, I don't like the fact that I think even if you're considering, like, Sinestra versus Sentient Eggs is probably about a wash. And Sinestra's pretty good. I am going to say this unit's probably a bit stronger than it should be, but it's not so outrageously strong that I'm just going to rage downvote it. I'm going to stand by what I said. But I will agree with you, Dark Ray, that the unit is stronger than it should be. Which for a unit that simple, as I've said earlier, usually just means I ignore it, but it's not by enough of a magnitude, in my opinion, is really all it is. Next we have Midas Salvage. That's like... Anyways, EEE Tensipply within base set. Wait, is it... Okay, so it's a base set unit. So you'd see it every game, and it's probably less powerful. It's probably like a weird... So, when bot consume a unit with 2 or more health, effect gained 3. So you could pay a unit that has 2 or more health to gain... Okay, if you pay 3 energy. Embodies some design proposals, add weaker detecting options, constant baseline rather than binary availability at high value only. Degree of gold waste by color can still vary by color or random set. You could use this to solve Animus, but paying EEE to solve an Animus, like at the point in the game where red is really that worthless, having 3 engineers is actually kind of a significant cost, because you'd much rather be buying the prompt defenders that are more efficient than engineer. And the energy is a funny resource, because it has value at the start of the game and it has value at the end of the game, but midway through the game it's mostly kind of just whatever, because you're buying engineers to fill granularity so much, and you're also not using your energy to buy drones. I kind of like that this unit takes advantage of that. Like, it has a cost to it. You can sell force fields, which might be problematic. So you can... I don't think that's problematic. You're paying 1 in the green to gain 3. You're paying 1 in the green and 3 energy at that, and a drone to pay 3. I misspoke when I said you're paying 1 in the green to gain 3. That would obviously be problematic. So you're turning a drone into an ebb effect. That is definitely a fair enough cost. Like, you'd have to pay. That's a fair to not even good use of this unit, I would say. Like, I think if this unit said sell a force field, gain 3, I would complain that you'd never buy it. Like, this unit's pretty terrible no matter what you try to abuse it with. Not even an ebb, it's only plus... No, because it consumes the drone, which mines for 1 first. Consumed units click. Like, for example, when you buy a Manticore, the Steel Splitter attacks, and then you get the Manticore. Or when you click Odin, the Steel Splitter attacks, and then, or when you buy a Venge Cannon, you get the 3 gold. So it is plus 3 gold, but nevertheless, that is a really poor use of this unit. And my bigger complaint is actually that I think, obviously it's within base set, and it's not meant to be bought often, but my concern with adding a unit like this to base set would be that it gets used little enough that it's kind of pointless. Energy's already but I should keep reading these just to read what the attempt is here. Energy's already a resource for raw income changes and gold generation. Within this role, economic moves. Yeah, fair. Limitations on unit design. Cap health relative to costs. Cryo ray. Oh yeah, cryo ray. Okay. That's I like that he pointed out the unit that would be broken with this, so that I didn't have to do it. Cryo ray would be very broken with this. You even get a cryo charge first, if you want it. You could also just immediately sell cryo and it would still be broken. Actually, you could... How would that even work? If you sold a cryo ray, do you get to click with it? Because you have a targeted click ability. I don't think sacrifices with targeted click abilities are currently supported in the game. So, I think it's a clunky unit. I think it's a cute idea for, like, this type of unit that you could theoretically put in base set. But I don't think there's a reason a unit like this would have to be added to base set. And I also think it would be mechanically very hard to implement in the game, which is not really something I'm weighing too much, but I do think I'm probably not going to pick this one just because of that. Fun fact, 99% of salvage synonyms begin with the letter that is a Prismati hotkey already. That's actually kind of funny. And the last of the Reddit submissions from Not by Moranax, which is one of the Discord submissions as well. I should fix that. Is Energy Beam, which we are currently deleting. Make sure I don't have any other duplicates here. Oh, I have Gauss Giant, which was apparently another one. Okay, the rest of these look unique. Energy Beam costs 8 and 4 energy, supply 4 or 1 health. Pay 3 energy to gain 1 attack. So it's a colorless attacker, which the thread aptly points out. Those are generally not supported in the game, which I remember there being some discussion around when this was posted in the Discord. I don't think it's something that would be horrible to break. It's something I'm kind of not in favor of breaking, though. Like, I think Savior is fine because it's indirect. It makes plasma fires, which then make attacked. Like, technically drones make attack. You're making the gold that you need to buy tech and then the attackers. But I think keeping the distance between colorless units and attack is probably good. That being said, how fair is this unit? If you have a lot of energy around, you could buy this for 8, and then it's a drone and an attacker, but you have to pay 3 energy. Is that even that great? Like, I don't think that's that great. Like, the difference between having to buy 3 engineers and a wall is... like, at that point, it's kind of significant, I would say. And that's probably enough to make this not that efficient. I do think that it's probably kind of a boring design. What I would say is, looks like you slept through the review of your own unit. Sorry about that, Ken Shrew. Anyways, yeah, I don't blame you for sleeping through it. I would say that this unit could have tech put on it. It could cost, like, any one of the 3 tech colors. Energy Beam would probably be most flavorful as a green attacker. And I don't think it would be broken. I think it could find a cost that would be fair. And I think it would be an interesting unit. I definitely don't like the fact that it's colorless, just because it doesn't feel like it needs to be. It doesn't feel like it fits as a colorless unit. It's just like, I don't know. It's also on the weak side, and I think you could make it a little stronger by changing the cost. Like, for example, you could make it 5 GG EE, which is probably what I would propose. You could even make it 5 energy to add extra flavor, if you really wanted. You could even, like, I think that would make it cheaper, and it would also make it more interesting because it's actually got a tech color to it. I don't really like the idea of having a unit that's, like, available in every set, because you would either go for it when it, like, it's either efficient enough that you just go for it and you don't have to even do any thinking about how you tech or things like that, or you don't go for it ever because it's a colorless unit that sucks. So I do think this is one of the better design rules in the game, that colorless units don't make attack, just because it's a way to skip a step that I consider fundamental to the game. And I also think it's probably not the most amazing balance-wise either, and it's not really that creative of a unit, so I'm probably going to say no to it. But it's an interesting idea. So next up we have Discord, which, can we zoom in on Notepad? I don't know if we even can. Good old Notepad. I should really just use Word. No, I don't know how hard this is to see. Let me look at OBS real quick. It's not impossible. We'll just, I remembered someone suggesting the zoom last time. That was just a stupid, I knew to zoom, I just forgot to, because I was lazy. So that is my bad on the last video. Notepad, yeah. I know, right? Let's just freaking open the Word. Word is a good program. Let's get a real text editor. Or a Word, please. Maybe we'll just use Notepad. Word is a good, bad program. Yeah, fair. It's not like... it's better than Notepad. We'll give it that. Anyways. We are now in Word, just so that we can do a little Control Plus. Or apparently it's not Control Plus in Word. Too used to Chrome. Can tell what I do all day. Kappa. Let's try 200. 200's about right, I'd say. Can also just use the bar down here. We'll make it a tad bigger. Okay, that should be a lot better, right? Control Shift Plus, god damn it. That was so close. Anyways, let me check OBS real quick, make sure that looks okay. That is going into my face a little bit. Let's just put it back to 200. Oh, oops. Can also just scroll it over this way a little bit. Yeah, good enough. Some of the longer ones run in, but whatever. Oh, we have Shock Bomb, which is 1 EE, 1 health. Click Sacrifice Shock Bomb. To gain an attack, construct an engineer for your opponent. Okay, so apparently there's quite a bit of chat in the meantime. Yeah, I can fallacy brain, so that's font size, not, yeah, I know. Anyways. Oh, you were talking about the hotkeys. Okay. I was a little confused by that. So, basically this is just tempo. It's kind of like a Nevo charge that does damage and then gives your opponent defense instead of freezing. It's worse than Nevo charge in the sense that you can't actually take advantage of chill against things such as stand units and then not construct the defense for your opponent again. It's kind of a neat gambiting unit, but it's a very simple unit and it's definitely weak. Because the thing is, it's cheap and you could use it at the end of the game, which is cute. I guess it's cute enough that you would sometimes do it. It's a way to, like, fill gold. Again, I don't love the fact that it's just, like, colorless. Although here the flavor that it's colorless seems a little more fair because it's a really bad unit that you would use occasionally. Still though, it's like, eh. I don't mind the colorless trinket unit that makes attack once as much as like a colorless attacker, I would say. But the thing is, at the point in the game where you would actually use 1 gold for 1 tempo attack, which I'm not even sure if that point in the game exists. Like, you're paying an awful lot for this unit. It's kind of like a 1 HP cryo ray that you can't target. Kind of. Because your opponent has to build 1 more defense, and then I think it's even worse than that, right? Like, a 1 HP cryo ray forces your opponent to keep 1 defense around for the full time. Like, a 1 HP cryo ray, until you use it to breach, it's kind of like a Gauss charge. So it's worse than a 1 HP cryo ray for sure, because it actually just attacks once and then makes the defense back. Which is why I was comparing it to Nevo charge. Nevo charge is much more like this unit. Obviously Nevo charge is a lot stronger than Shock Bomb, which is good, because this is a colorless unit. You don't want it to be strong. My problem with this unit is it's just so weak that it's base plus 7. And also the fact that, like, it just doesn't really, yeah, I'm not doing this one for sure. I'd say the main problem is that the unit's too weak, and it's so simple that I think it's kind of the core of the design. Like, I'm not sure how I would fix that unit. Jazz Drone, 3 in gold and 2 energy, 4 supply, 1 health. Build time 2. Click pay and energy to gain 4 gold and exhaust 3. Okay, that's a relatively difficult to evaluate drone. That feels like one that you could put into the calculator, and yet I still refuse to use the calculator for some reason. Although for most of these I haven't really needed the calculator, so it's not really my fault. Click pay energy to gain 4 gold. Exhaust 3. So it's like a pay 3 and then build time. It's an interesting idea for a drone. And that actually looks maybe about right. I can't, it's either about right or a little too good. But it's an alternate drone. It can be a little too good. It's not crazy efficient. And it does interesting things, and it fits the theme pretty well. Yeah, this one's good. Like, of the alternate, I feel like there's a purpose for, like, an ISO drone to be in the game. So I like this idea. And the 2 build time stops it from being, like, ridiculous, where you have to make it really expensive to get a burst of economy. So I think this is a pretty good model for a drone that exhausts. So, good unit. Anti-thermal cannon. 3 and a gold, blue, red. 4 supply, 4 health. Frontline. Click pay, 3 energy to chill 5. It says edited, but that means that was a direct copy paste from Discord. So that means there was a prior version and it was edited. How do I feel about this unit? So first off, something I've mentioned in the video from last week was that the use of the frontline tag you have to be kind of careful with, because you don't want to really put it on units that are ridiculously cheap. This one, I'd say, is expensive enough that it's fair to be frontline, even though you usually won't kill it unless you have exact. It's sort of around the Iceblade Golem level, maybe a little bit worse to kill, based on gold cost for frontline, or resource costs. So, I think that part of this design is fair. Pay 3 energy to chill 5. So you're threatening 5. Thing is, if you have 3 energy on the board, like, threatening a chill 5 is pretty scary, right? Like, this is a build time 1 frostbite that costs 1 in a blue more, which granted, if that was a unit, it wouldn't get bought. But it chills 5 instead of 3. I mean, that's fine, because there are some sets in which case chill 5 is chill 3. Hi, Temron, how's it going? Sorry, this isn't a Mata stream, although you're happy to, I'm happy to have you stick around. I'm just throwing this up here because I can, but I'm actually recording, so I'm trying to read the chat, like a limited amount. But I've already been all over the place this video, and anyone who's stuck with me this long would expect that from me. So, doesn't really bother me. Anyways, because you have to pay 3 energy, and sometimes it is just a frostbite, I think you could add this unit to the game. I think it's actually pretty cute. And if it's ever too good, you can frontline it, and it's 4 supply, so you do have to plow through 4 of them. But I like that it doesn't completely disable, like, Energy Matrix or things like that in the way that Tatsu does. Like, Tatsu's a fine unit to have in the game, but I don't think it needs another Tatsu. But I think this one's cute, so I like it. These are from the Discord, which is why I have to use Word instead of just using the Reddit thread, by the way. Anyways, next we have Matter Creation, which is 10 energy, build time 3, start a turn, gain 20 gold, and sacrifice Matter Creation. I don't need to plug that in to tell that that's too strong. That is too strong, and yes, it's supply 1, so you could do cute, like, I guess, the theory is you pay 10 engineers, which costs 20. And then eventually you get your gold back. So it's kind of cute. But like, if Phantom was in the set, it's immediately broken. It has ridiculous synergy with Antoma. which is, kind of unfortunate. I think a unit like this probably could be in the game without Antima. Because the thing I am realizing is when you scale this far up with energy, you can evaluate it lower. Or you can value the energy higher than usual, because at that point it's actually difficult to buy 10 engineers. And you're not really getting defensive value out of them. You're going out of your way to buy them. That still worries me, because at some point in the game this will just be good. Because you can buy 10 engineers when you're getting the defense, and they're like build time 1 or build time 2 engineers. Because your opponent has enough damage. It does cost a lot to get the engineers. I think this is a unit you could put in the game. It's just not a unit I'd like to be in the game. Because if the set's small enough, you just don't buy it. If the set has Antima Comet or has a large unit, it just goes large enough that at some point you buy 10 engineers and then buy it and then get a ridiculous burst of gold. So, I don't know. It's kind of cute, but it's not for me, I'd say. Energy Spinner. The classic fire spinner of the challenge. 20 energy, supply 1. Okay, off the bat, we're going to have to nix this one. This should be 22 energy. Everyone knows that you have to buy out the engineers to actually use this unit. Consume 20 engineers, sacrifice energy, and construct 20 walls and gain 100 gold. That one's pretty good. I think this unit might be good. Okay, I appreciate that one being put in the pool. Steel mill should be 1 supply. You left it off by mistake. I remembered you saying that. Thank you. So, final unit submitted by Drab. For the other ones, I'm going to have to go through and check who made them later. But I usually go by valuation first, and then if I realize someone won recently, or things like that, maybe I'll shift results around. If I like designs enough, I won't. Like, most of the time, I pick the 3 designs that I like the best in order, and then put them on the thread, is what I generally do. But every once in a while, I have to move those around. So, Steel Mill, 6, 2 blue and energy, 4 health, 1 supply. So it costs an energy. Start a turn, gain 1 gold for each steel splitter you have. So at what point would this... You'd have to have 3 steel splitters for this to be like buying 3 drones for... Like if you have 3 steel splitters, this unit's reasonably efficient. I get that this is playing off of the unit that I picked for the last design challenge, and I think it's another cool idea. I think it's another good way to have like a scaling unit. I guess the concern I have with this one is that it's not really like an upgrade to Steel Splitter that at some point loses value again. It's actually just kind of like Steel Splitter Perilla, because you would just, once you have a steel mill, you would buy a bunch of steel splitters, because why wouldn't you? Like an attack and a gold is pretty insane, and you don't have that much of an initial investment to set this up. Like, you have to buy 1 steel, like a lot of times you just buy a steel splitter because the unit's really good if you have 1 of them in the early game, or as an option to absorb on instead of wall to exploit granularity or things like that. So, you only need 2 more steel splitters for this to already be a fine purchase, probably even like a pretty good purchase. Like, sure, it costs 2 blue, and that's a little more than 3 gold, but you're nixing 2 energy, so you can get it pretty easily, and it's a way to buy a lot of drones. Sure, you're buying steel splitters into, like, absorb, but this unit I want to say is too good in almost every set. I think you would use this a lot, and it would be kind of ridiculous and not very interesting because, unlike with the other unit, literally with this one you just buy all the steel splitters. And it's also just stronger than the other unit. That one's definitely too strong for what it does. So that's my first round. We have another idea, which is biofilm. This is just a light submission that isn't for entry, but wants evaluation. 4 GR, 10 supply, 4 HP prompt. Click pay EE to gain blocker. That's interesting. I will say the fact that it costs green and red and isn't fragile kind of goes against the theme of the units that's currently in the game. Like, for example, you have Protoplasm, Sinestra, Scorchilla, Sentinel. None of those units are not fragile. And obviously you need it to not really be fragile for the unit to work as a design. I also think giving red a unit that's strong is really scary. Like, 2 energy is a cost, but it's not that much of a cost. And you're like, if this unit was 4 green and a red for a prompt blocker, that's pretty spooky. And also prompt and click pay EE. I assume you're looking at a unit that's like Rhino, because Rhinos can't click immediately. So this unit, when you buy it, isn't a blocker, is the only way that it could actually be implemented in the game, since you have to pay EE to gain blocker. So I don't think there's a reason for that unit to be prompt. If you're trying to make it so that you buy it and it's prompt, and then your unit's just overpowered, like, you could use that as soak at that point, and it would be ridiculously strong. So I think you have a good idea. I think there should absolutely be units that pay to gain blocker. I think that's a unit that the devs have even expressed they're going to expand into as they develop more units. But that specific unit is probably too strong, especially given that it's a green-red unit. I would either make the click more to make it more of a real cost, or I would just make it cost more. Or maybe you could retech it. It feels like something that would, like, as I said, it doesn't really feel like a green-red unit. It feels like something that would maybe be, like, although it's called a biofilm, that is kind of a good name for that type of unit. I don't know. There are a lot of directions you could go with that. I don't want to spend a ton of time because I do have to actually pick a winner here. But you can make it click to construct infusion grid. That has the risk of you're making actual soak, though. Like, if you absorb on the infusion grid, then you get an infusion grid, and you could use it again to make another infusion grid. Whereas the biofilm, if you absorb on it, you can't. It's... Everybody left is a winner, decision done. Yeah. I wish I could get away with that. Anyways... We've been here for quite a while. This one might have actually exceeded the last one. It's about the same from what I can tell. So apologies that this took so long. But it is what it is. So, said no, said no. Shield drone is a fair unit. I like this unit. Could definitely go in the game. It's kind of a cool idea. I'm like this one's better than some of the ones I upvoted. I think there were a few I probably was too attached to say no to. Like, I can't just make every good design a winner. That's kind of the rough part about being a judge. Like, a lot of these are good. This round was better than usual, I would say, on average. We have Drone Droid here, which I was a little bit not sold on this one, even though you could put it into the game. So I'm going to say no to that. I guess technically I usually just remove the vote when I do it. Plasma Lancer. This is the one I misread the first time, but it's actually a really interesting design. And I think it's totally fair, and it's got an interesting tech cost, and I like it. This one's good. Zapper. I said this could go into the game, and I like that it's sort of a symmetrical effect that could go into the game. That being said, it is inefficient, but works. But it's not that inefficient. I think playing around this would maybe just get a little bit annoying. Just from how the game works, you can't actually... In sharp openings, this might actually be pretty huge. It would be cute, but I'm not in love with it, I would say, as much as some of the others. That design definitely works, but we have Biology Lab here. I'd say the same thing for Biology Lab, although, just the design is good. I think if you were to make an alternate Animus, I think this one's relatively fair. And it's also cool that you can shut it off. But I'm worried about it being just a little too broken with units where you need the red really quickly and then just shut it off. Sure, you need... Because you don't even need the engineers when you buy it. You just buy the engineers and then... if you have to buy the engineers just to power Biology Lab, that's fine, but... I'm torn on this one. This one's pretty good, I would say. But it's... I'll keep it in. That one's fair enough to keep in. We're just going to slowly weed these down. Coveter... is the one that spends energy as gold. I wasn't in love with this when I read it. It's got kind of a lot going on. I think I only barely kept it in. So I'll knock it out now. Gauss Giant. I was worried about this one being a little too good. But it's a unit that could go into the game and it wouldn't totally break it. Although if you rotate a bunch of these, this unit's pretty good. I don't know. But if you have to pay energy to attack with each one, then suddenly you're just adding a whole bunch of engineers and you don't need prompt engineers anymore. So the cost increases there. So I think this is a fair unit. Obviously, most of the ones I upvoted because they're fair units. I can't keep in every fair unit. How much do I like this unit compared to the other units? It's actually hard to say. Not enough to remove the vote now. Oh, I accidentally downvoted this one. Hurricane. This is the one that I said I would change the numbering on. If I were to put it into the game to 4-9. 4 Gauss charges and 9 health. And I think that's a pretty important change. I think as is, this unit's probably too strong. The design is cool, but it's a tough round, so I'm gonna knock it for that. I think it's, I think this one's probably, I probably have to say no. So next we have another one from Hella Chaz. Hella Chaz has made some decent ones this time around, I would say. Sentient Egg. Cute idea. As pointed out, this is probably a little too good. I think it would influence more sets than you'd want from this type of unit. It's, the name is cute and all, and the tech cost. In-game, it'd be a lot less fun to play with than you'd think, I think. I probably shouldn't have upvoted that one, to be honest. That was probably me being a bit stubborn. So, next up... Oh wait, the notepad is empty because we emptied it because notepad, lol. We have Jazz Drone and we have Anti-Thermal Cannon. Downfall unit has too much going on. I mean, I say, like, that might sound like a meme, but that is actually a pretty important thing when you're designing a unit. Like, if it's hard for me to understand what your unit does, think about how hard it's going to be for a new player to understand, you know, what's going on. As I said earlier, obviously new players kind of a meme right now because there are no new players, but in theory the game should have new players at some point, whether or not that actually happens. So, I definitely do value simplicity. I think units that are too simple kind of become a little bit uninteresting. There's definitely like a lukewarm spot that I usually look for. Not to say that you can't make simple units or complicated units. There are some simple units that have gotten this far, but I will say that it's definitely an important part. I would reckon. Jazz Drone. It's an ISO drone. I didn't actually do the official valuation on this one. I don't know. It is one of the more... I like... Yeah, this one's... Like, reading it over, this is a pretty good drone. We'll keep it in for suspense. And the anti-thermal cannon's the one we just reviewed. Frontline. Pay 3 energy to chill 5. Are we going to delete it? I get to do this with my mouse now. This one's actually pretty cool. Like, reading it at first, I was a little worried because the front line for cost ratio was a little... Like, the frontline health to cost ratio is a little high. But it's clearly just not a unit that's really meant to be frontlined. It's a unit that you're meant to buy. And can be frontlined to make it a little more... You have to be a little cautious when buying it, and if it's a little too oppressive, your opponent kills it. This one's a good design, the more I read it over. So we're going to have trouble picking winners. I'm probably just going to keep doing the exact same thing until I'm stuck with 3. Shield Drone... I'm gonna say it doesn't really fit the theme as much, is probably why this unit felt maybe a little off. As I did say up at the very top, drones that technically cost energy and aren't prohibited, but they're a bit discouraged. I feel bad actually eliminating a submission on that because I can't really poke much of a hole in this unit outside of that. That being said, there are a lot of good submissions this time around, and it's also one of the sort of, like, simpler units out there. Like, this is a lot like a couple of other units that I've seen. Which is not to knock it, it's a fair design. But, it's just like you have to buy a drone to... Like, I guess the one criticism I'd have of this unit is that having a drone absorber that is good enough to buy, like, even in the mid to late game, like, you would buy this unit for a long time, and it would drag games out quite a bit. Like, I get that's what you're going for here. Like, I think that would be an interesting niche to have a unit for, but I think you could make it a little weaker and a little worse at high inflations. And it would make it more interesting. Like, this is a really strong unit. It's not so strong you couldn't put it in the game since it's an absorber, but it would definitely alter the set. Probably more heavily than is healthy for the game. So next we have Plasma Lancer again. I've kind of already expressed that this one's a finalist in my opinion. Even though I almost misread it and just downvoted it immediately. Biology lab, I think I'm ready to give the downvote to. Just because of the risks. Like, high econ Lucina game, this unit's nuts. There's no way, there's no beating around the bush there. Same for Amperilla. Like, I get that this unit is kind of designed for that purpose, and it alters sets in that way, but I think it probably does so more than it needs to. I'm not really sure how I would fix that. Like, it's definitely a fair unit that you could put in the game. So, again, props. This is going to be a tough round. Maybe I should just do everybody wins. How dumb is it to do everybody wins? Next we have Gauss Giant again. I think same criticism goes for Gauss Giant as quite a few of the other units. Particularly Shield Drone. Like, this unit would definitely push itself quite a lot. You'd kind of just buy as many of these as you can. It would drag out the game a bunch. Because the more of these you rotate in, you can absorb on them more often. And you buy more engineers. Like, it's actually worth... At some point, like, with this unit might be good enough that you'd actually pay 12 GGG to use. Like, that's probably a little excessive. Like, I think it'd be a little more interesting if at some point you don't get value out of the prompt engineers, and it becomes sort of more comparable to other absorbers, although, like, this one's not that unfair. Like, maybe that's a little harsh, but I think it's probably not my favorite unit. I can't quite put my finger on why. If I did have, like, at this point I feel like I'm just picking at straws here. Like, these are all good designs. So, I kind of just have to go with my gut at this point. And we have these two left. Jazz Drone, Anti-Thermal Cannon. How many of the Reddit ones are we? I think we're down to 5, if I've been counting correctly. Maybe not even 5. That one... Oh, we're actually down to 3. Sweet. That makes my life easier. Hey. Is that fair? Would I actually pick Jazz Drone over... Probably the most interesting one that I removed the upvote from is, I want to say, if I had to pick another one, Gauss Giant. I think Gauss Giant would be the one. I actually think I like Gauss Giant more than Jazz Drone, but I'm kind of just saying that arbitrarily. And it's also the one I hesitated the most in removing the upvote from. Gauss Giant could go in the game. It's cool, and it's flexible, and it's a little bit tricky to optimize. Although I'm worried that you optimize it by buying a lot of Gauss Giants in quite a few sets. But it's neat. Anti-Thermal Cannon I like more than Gauss Drone. Anti-Thermal Cannon is fun. It's a relatively well-designed chill unit, I would say. And it fills a niche that we don't really have with, like, frontline actual... I mean, frontline chill is Iceblade Golem, but Iceblade Golem is a pretty unique unit in itself. It doesn't really feel like they overlap in what they do that much. Could also theoretically use it to support Iceblade Golem, although Iceblade Golem typically has enough chill already. Jazz Drone... Like, it's really tough to compare simple units like Jazz Drone that are really just based on, like, being reasonably costed units and, like, fair enough to go into the game, versus units that do, like, all of these crazy things and would totally change up the game. So, like, it feels wrong to delete this unit, but at the same time, I do tend to favor units that change up the game a little bit more, and I do state that. So I am going to delete Jazz Drone. It's a cool design. I would like to see a drone like it in the game, but I guess it feels like a little bit less work went into thinking that one up than the other units that are on this list. To some degree, I value effort. I try not to value effort too much. I care more about what's on the plate than, the process behind it. But at some point, that does become a factor. So we have our 3 after a fairly painful decision. We've got Plasma Lancer, which can reread all of these. This is an awfully, interesting unit. It changes, it only kills Tarsiers, Shadow Fangs, and, a few other things. But the fact that you can get value out of that is pretty cool. And it's, hard to determine when to use it to kill a drone. It's definitely not good enough if you're using it as a Deadeye operative. And it's neat. You also have to, maybe the argument against this unit is you don't use the click ability enough, but I think it's a unit that you're not supposed to use the click ability very often for. It's just supposed to be flexibility and, a fair attacker. And it feels relatively flavorful. It feels like a unit that the devs would design and put into the game. I'm tempted to just declare that one a winner. I almost downvoted Gauss Giant, so that's probably a sign that I value Gauss Giant less highly than Plasma Lancer. And the final unit is Anti-Thermal Cannon. And that unit feels like second place to me. So we have our verdict. I haven't actually been able to get in contact with people as to what the next design challenge is going to be. So it might be a little while before the thread goes up. But that will wrap up this video, which has already carried on for too long. How long have I been recording? Yikes. That is a fairly long time. Oh, that's the amount of time I've been streaming. So less long than I've been recording, at least. I've been recording for less long, but this will still be quite the video. So thanks for tuning in if you've actually made it this far. I'm impressed that I have more than 0 people watching the stream right now. So maybe we'll play a bit of Prismata to reward the folks that have stuck around. Although really everyone will just jump back in if I play Prismata, probably. But yeah, if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.